That's a great question. I actually just told the story. Ben Carlson got in town and we grabbed lunch together. Um, I was on a road trip to Yale. Got a call first from Ernie. Didn't answer it. It's usually a common thing when Ernie calls. He's usually calling that time of year to, mess with me, talk about how bad the Lakers are or the Packers are. So I didn't earn it. And then I got a combo call from Ernie and Jake Marsh. I was like, oh, I should probably answer this. They probably got something important if it's not just Ernie. So picked it up. I was on the bus with the whole team, and we are heading into the dinner, and they kind of laid out that this is really going to happen. We got a spot locked up in it, and they asked me the head coach, and my first thought was I sit right behind Coach Becker on the bus. So I had to run it by the boss man while I was still on the phone, and so I just kind of tapped him on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, Coach, what are the chances in mid-July I could coach a TBT team?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a recruiting period, so you should be on the road recruiting this weekend." And I said, "So can I coach the TBT team?" And he said, "Yeah, go for it, Derek." So immediately told Ernie and Jake I was locked in. Once I got the go-ahead from the boss man, it was one of those things. It was just too easy of an answer. Once I got the clearance from the job, and I've legitimately told the guys probably 12 times already that I haven't slept in a month, and I truly mean that. I just want to make sure we're as prepared as possible, just like we would treat any game here at Vermont. And having core 8 guys that have been through the program, there should be a lot of familiarity. And just really looking forward to practice today, taking it one day at a time, and then being able to get some film. Hopefully tomorrow of our guys playing, and be ready for Saturday. That's the ultimate goal.
Should be somewhat easy to bring this team together. I mean, the Becker era has basically covered you and all of these guys. So, I mean, in some ways, whether they played together or not, they've kind of played together.
Yeah, I think the systems will be very familiar, both offensively and defensively. As being a first-time head coach, I'm not trying to go too far outside of those boxes on offense and defense. But I do think it's important to put your own little spin on things when you get the chance and opportunity, things you've been thinking about for a long time, that you don't have to run through the whole staff to get into a game plan. So definitely have some of those things that I've been looking forward to adding. But yeah, the core concepts. Once we get on the court today at 4:30, start practicing, it'll feel very familiar to 8 out of the guys. And adding Ben Carlson. It was just really a positional need. And funny story with him, we actually recruited him when he was leaving Wisconsin and came down to us in Utah, and that was not really a battle at that point. We were ready to win, so he ended up going to Utah for his last 2 years. But I had his contact, and I was heavily involved in the recruiting of him at that time, so it was a no-brainer to reach out to him to kind of finish out the roster and add some size. So he'll be the only one that this stuff is new to.
Thinking about your duties as the head coach, right? You bring in a group of guys that we can all see at one point or a time. They were leaders for the Catamounts. How much of your job is making sure that you can gel everybody together, having not played together maybe over the last 4 or 5 years, and then also your other half of your duties of just trying to make sure that you scout the other team and make sure that everything is in order business-wise for this to be able to press forward?
Another very easy answer, similar to the one when they asked me to coach. You rely on Robin Duncan. That's what you do. He's a guy that just embodied Vermont when he was here, and Coach Becker, played him early as a freshman, and that was the reason. Skill-wise and stuff, he may not have been prepared, but he has all the qualities you're talking about. So it was an easy decision to make him the captain of the team, and all that stuff you're talking about, and making sure we're all cohesive and on the same page. I'm going to let Robin Duncan set the tone on that. We've always been a really player-led team, like you said, and the majority of these guys are probably some of the best players on their teams when they're here. But what makes us special usually is how well we share the ball, we defend, we rebound, all the little things that help you win games. So, again, when we get on the court, I'm hoping that all comes back, and if not, I'll make sure Robin gets on them.
What was kind of the recruiting philosophy here? Because obviously there's a lot of guys that obviously you've coached for the last couple of years that were probably looking for something different to do during the summer, but some of the guys you had to kind of go a little bit deeper back into the program's history to find a guy like Drew, a guy like Darren, and it's been, I don't want to say 7 years, 7 or 8 years since he's played here. How do you kind of decide that those are the guys that you want to target?
Yeah, we have a lot of guards. I think we've had a lot of guards that were willing to do it, that are still playing pro. We really tried to start, near the top. I'm sure a lot of names people have been throwing around. You look at our social media posts, there's some guys that, we really tried to get that, whether they're playing for their national team like Trey Bell-Haynes, whether, Lamb's coming off an injury from the year before and he doesn't want to risk it, a pretty significant Achilles injury. So we started at the top. Some of the guys that are some of the all-time UVM greats, and we just worked our way down. And then once you get a core, you got to kind of find the positional needs, the guys that are going to fill out. And we needed a 5-man, needed a couple of them. In this tournament, there's a lot of heavy guys, big guys in the paint, and we were lacking that. So we added Drew, Darren, and Nick as our final 3, which they were all willing and they're all still currently playing basketball, which was huge. Because, again, I think our advantage in this tournament is there's a lot of teams that have older guys. I think we're going to be one of the younger teams in this, and I'm hoping to use that to our advantage, being in better shape. Maybe that's picking up the length of the court, whatever it is, just throwing everything we can because, like Ben said, we got one game to get it right, and if we don't get it right, then we'll gear up for next year. It's going to be a full 365. But, really the long-term goal of this is to make it a full UVM team if we can. And, I think the more we continue to do it year after year and it gets exposure that we're going to continue to do this, the more likelihood we are to get, some of the other guys to come back as well and want to do this and they see it's up and established. So, those are kind of the long-term plans. But just for this year, we wanted to make sure we had some good size to compete with some of the better teams that are really big inside.
With TBT, Derek, can you just, for a fan in Vermont, what's different than a normal college basketball? Like, what will they see on Saturday that's different? What are the rules?
Yeah, so it's they play quarters, so it's going to be 4 9-minute quarters. They do a media at the 4-minute mark of each quarter. It's funny, looking through the rule book and all that. They do have. They play college rules, but in 2022, 2023, before all the challenging and stuff got into play in college basketball. And then the one change is they do allow the FIBA rule goaltend. There's no goaltend, only on a free throw. You can, in live play, you can go up with the ball sitting on the rim and you can tip it off. So, I was thinking about that. Like, can we use O'Leary to make sure he's ready to do that? I mean, it takes him a half a second to get up there. So, we're aware of the rules, but that's kind of the format of the game. And then they have a really unique ending that it's had my brain in a puzzle for a long time. But at the 4-minute media mark of the fourth quarter, they turn the game clock off. The team that's leading will add 8 points to their score, and that will become the target score. So the only thing that runs is a shot clock. So their whole thought process behind that is that there will always be a game-winning shot. There's no stalling. There's no late game fouling. You have to continue to put the ball in the basket if you want to win. And it creates those really tense moments when a team's sitting 2 points down and a bucket will win the game. It really gets tense on the court. And, especially if the other team's got fouls and stuff, they can play really aggressive against you. So if you've ever watched a tournament, there's a lot of late game heroics that end up happening. Teams down 8, guys sitting on 2 points from the target score, and the defense goes on a run because the offense gets really tight, trying to kind of press and put them over the finish line. So I've been thinking a lot about that. I'm not exactly sure what the game plan is to keep our guys loose and keep generating good offense and good shots. But I'll talk with Ernie and make sure we have a plan in place. Maybe try and save a few timeouts just in case we want to execute some good plays and make sure we get the right guy shot. Try and get the game-winning shot. So that's kind of just a general overview of how the games are played and are different from college. But it is a 30-second shot clock, so a lot of that will feel familiar.
Is this your first time head coaching at any level?
So, no, it's funny. Actually, Ben didn't mention this, but when I was a student manager here at UVM, I coached 3 summers of AAU basketball. I actually coached Ben back in high school before he came here. And we had a good run. It was just a local team me and my dad put together to get some head coaching experience with some of Vermont's talent. And, I was really fortunate, like you said, to be able to give back too. And I had some of our former, our UVM guys were my assistant coaches helping us, and the kids really loved it in the community. I had Clancy Rugg help me a year, Luke Atfeld my first year. Some of the captains on UVM's teams have passed. It was a really cool way to give back to the community. And we practiced out of Milton High School when my dad was working, so it was really cool get a group of guys together. But that was the only other time I've been a head coach, so a little bit different level. A little bit different quality of player now, even though Ben was on the team then and he's on the team now. I think he's a little bit better of a player than he was back then.
Did you ever imagine going from a year ago this time, or just being promoted to an official coach on the bench to now being the head coach of a team full of NBA talent and NCAA talent?
Yeah, no, I've talked with Ernie a lot about doing this tournament in years previously, and when I got that call, I was really excited because I know it's a lot that goes into doing this and making sure you do it right and you treat your players right, and you give them a chance to go out and be successful. So no, I didn't think, I thought maybe we kind of got past that. We had tried probably 4 or 5 years ago and kept trying year after year, but I'm really excited that we made it happen. And like I said, the goal is that this isn't a one-time thing. We keep this rolling for future years, and again, I think it would only be easier to keep getting some of our other guys to come back. I read. I'm one of those people. I'm on social media. I read all the posts. I wanted half the guys they were talking about too. It wasn't that for a lack of trying. We reached out to just about everyone you guys could imagine, from even deeper than some of the guys we got to, and they told us they're not in shape to do it. And I'm talking about some of the, the Coppenraths, the Blakeleys, and so, it's just we got a young team. I think we'll be in shape and we'll be ready to go. But yeah, we're going to try and build this to a point where hopefully, I didn't think we'd get a 3 seed this year. I thought first year in this tournament we'd be a 7 or 8, but we were stunned with, someone looked at our roster and said we had the third best team in our regional bracket. Was pretty impressive for our first year putting this together. And I think it speaks volume of the program that Coach Becker's built here, that we can put a team together in our first year, and that's the quality of seeding we'll get. Puts a little more pressure on me as a coach. If you're a 7-8 seed, you're just happy to be there, keep it close. Now when you're favored to win the game, puts a little more pressure on the head coach to make sure you're prepared and you actually get that done. So, but I'm excited. I'm really excited for it.
You mentioned, kind of touched a little bit on the Elam ending and how that goes. If you thought at all about a situation where you need a bucket to try and win the game, who you want trying to take that last shot? Are you guys going to try and diagram some stuff, figure out when you get the guys here, or is there some situational basis depending on what the game is going on?
No, that's a great question, and like I said, I haven't slept in a month, and that's been a huge part of the reason, is trying to figure that out with as much talent as we have. But I think again, you'd probably start the possession by putting the ball in Robin's hands, and letting him trying to create for others. He's an elite passer, pass playmaker, and really for me, and I'll emphasize this today when we get to practice, it's just about the shot quality. I don't want to be taking sidestep threes, turnaround twos. I want to be taking high-quality shots, and I think if the ball starts in Robin's hands, we'll have a good shot to generate that, because I know he's not going to force it. But obviously, hopefully the ball ends in probably Shungu's hands as the person taking the shot, or if we get a situation where Dylan's got a favorable matchup, it's easy. I'm looking through the roster and then I'm like, start talking about the guys, and I'm like, oh yeah, that probably does make a 3 seed, because Dylan Penn played in this tournament last year and he had 20 points versus a 1 seed in Louisville and he looked like a pro. So he could easily put the ball in his hands too. There's a lot of really good players on our roster, and they're probably going to be mad at me that I only called out 2 out of our 9 guys, but really, it's just about the shot quality.
Maybe you might have answered this because I was out, but I guess maybe it's a question better for them anyway. But what made it this year be the time to enter the tournament for the first time? I realize that might have been a question for them.
They asked me. We were already locked in at that point. But I think, I don't know, I don't want to speak for them, but I know Jake, put a lot of effort into it, and, you got to have connections first and foremost to get in this tournament. You know, they only take 64 teams, you know, it's hard to get in. You got to submit, you know, possible players that you're going to have on your roster. They're going to evaluate that, see if it's going to be a good fit, if there's any way they're going to garner interest with your roster and have some support down there. You know, the one thing we all know about our Catamount faithful here is that they'll travel, and you know, we've done well when the name Syracuse is tied to our name, you know, I think that helps you know, garner some interest. I think we'll travel well, have a good, you know, hopefully a good turnout down there, you know, clearly they like the roster and the possible players that Jake and Ernie were going to be able to put together, and you know, we're able to just do it, you know. But again, I think you're right. There's probably a better question for those guys, but yeah, I'm just excited. I like I said, it's been a long time coming, and I'm just excited we're finally here.